What does a survival-based childhood teach a person from a very early age? Well, basically that relationships are painful. Love is painful. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the dynamics of survival, basically negate everything that a healthy childhood would provide for a person. Healthy boundaries, individuation, differentiation. Somebody that was raised with a lack of healthy boundaries, a lack of individuation, a lack of differentiation, and with that survival-based dynamics, they learned that they learned that relationships are all about boundary violations rather than healthy boundaries. They may have essentially learned to be actually just a narcissistic extension for somebody. And so if this was what they learned in childhood, like deeply ingrained from a very, very early age, well, then what they're going to do is they're just going to associate relationships and love with pain. They essentially learn the dynamics of sadomasochism, and they just continue to play that out in their relationships as they go on. The fascinating thing about this entire dynamic is that if you learn that relationships are painful, and before I continue, I will differentiate healthy relationships from unhealthy relationships, because there is such thing as unhealthy sadomasochistic love. It's painful. It is love, but it is a broken love. It's a sad love, because it is a love that was learned in the dynamics of survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, where your boundaries were violated, and you learned that pain was loving, or that love was painful. And so with that, you then just continued to play that out over and over again in adulthood, because repetition compulsion has us recreating the same comfortable and familiar emotional dynamics of our painful survival-based childhood alive. So the original damage, it doesn't matter what the damage was, the original wound, and you were cut into, and you were ripped open, and you were obliterated, and you were fucking violated. All of the original stuff has you believing that relationships are just meant to be painful. And the saddest part about that is that when you have that belief, you go out there and you seek relationships that reinforced that. Isn't that wild? And so, on the side of this that is healing, and I know that I made a video on this the other day, basically talking about how, yeah, you're healing, but you may still be choosing reinforcements of the original wound, the original damage. If what you learned was to be a narcissistic extension of an exceedingly insecure parent or guardian or authority figure, essentially what you learned was that whatever it is that you want in life, your parents didn't give a fuck about that. They weren't interested in that. If this was the way that you were raised, if you were raised by somebody who basically was like, I'm insecure as shit, my identity is unhealthy, and I'm going to rely on my child as a trophy to caretake that. And so I'm going to turn them into a narcissistic extension of themselves, or of myself. I don't give a fuck what they want to do. Or maybe I'll like halfway pretend just so that as I give them crumbs, they do exactly what I want them to do. Yeah, some children actually end up becoming narcissistic extensions of their parents, to caretake their parents' emotions. Oh, their parents are insecure, and so they have to become a trophy child. They have to become a overachiever, exhaust themselves. It's unhealthy. It's boundary violations. First and foremost, because you as a parent are controlling what it is that your child does. There's a difference between healthy boundaries and making sure that your child doesn't run out into the fucking road and get hit by a car, and controlling what it is that they wear, what it is that they do. No, you're not going to be an artist because that wouldn't look good for the family. Instead, you're going to become a fucking doctor or a lawyer. And by the way, this is no like hit to like being a doctor or a lawyer. Um, there are those things in society, and doctors, the exceedingly good ones, are beneficial. I'm not here to knock any profession. What I am here to do is communicate how people that are raised in survival, they learn dynamics of love that are sadomasochistic, and they learn that relationships in love are painful. And they learn that with that, they are to continue to choose people that reinforce that same initial original wound, that original damage. The damage to the ego state was control, when instead the ego state needed healthy boundaries. And no, you do not get to control your child. Your child is to, as it would be healthy, learn individual autonomy, independence from the system in which it was raised in. And in any healthy family system, that is exactly what would be taught. And it would not happen in a way that would create any dynamic of anxiety in the child. There are people that learned to be exceedingly independent and also simultaneously anxious as fuck. This is why understanding attachment is very important. You can severely fuck your child up if you don't instill a healthy dynamic of secure attachment. But anyway, getting back to it. So the reality of this entire dynamic is that you learned very early on in your survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that relationships, love, is painful. It's painful because it's boundary violating. It's painful because it's enmeshed. Healthy relationships look like this. Fucked up, painful, dysfunctional, enmeshed relationships look like this. Individual autonomy while still coming together and being able to experience love. Healthy love in the intersubjective space between self and other. Not enmeshment and pain and pseudo-intimacy. Anything that is forced and quick. But going back to the original damage, which is very important to understand, if you do not see it for what it is, which is something that I encourage in many of my videos. I mean, it's basically like the theme of this entire channel, other than the reality of personal development content centered around psychology. Seeing everything for what it is very important. If you don't know the difference between healthy love, boundaried, individuated, differentiated love, and unhealthy, sadomasochistic, boundary violating love, and what you were raised in was the unfortunate latter of painful love. Oh, that's just the way that love is. Love hurts. Yeah, unhealthy love hurts. Unhealthy, sadomasochistic, boundary violating love hurts. Healthy love does not hurt. Healthy love is peaceful and lovely and wonderful. And there is a difference. There's a very severe difference. Actually, I kind of want to just elaborate on this because it's funny. All the times I've heard this said growing up, basically became hardwired. This idea that love hurts. Oh, that's just the way that it is. Love hurts. Love is painful. I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because it's sad that so many people don't know the difference between healthy love and unhealthy love. I'll validate both of them as love, but what I will do also is differentiate clearly between the two of them. You can call it healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships. And this is why it's so important to get out of survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, because if you were raised in survival, that's the way that you believe that relationships are supposed to be. Like, that's the program that's running. The program is, oh, well, yeah, relationships are painful. Love is painful. This is just the way that love is. This is just the way that love is. You have a generalized idea, a generalized idea of what love is, hardwired into your mind while completely negating, or maybe you just never even knew about it. If you do know about it, then it would be counterproductive to continue to choose the same reinforcements of the original damage that led you to believe that love in general, relationships in general, are just painful. You have only chosen reinforcements based on the damaged belief system. Again, you have only chosen reinforcements based on what it is that you've believed about love and relationships, and that belief is that love and relationships are painful. Unhealthy, sadomasochistic, boundary-violating love is painful. It exists. There are people out there that have unhealthy, sadomasochistic, boundary-violating, loving relationships. It's a broken dynamic. It totally is. But that doesn't change the fact that through repetition, compulsion, it is comfortable and familiar, which is exactly why it is chosen by people that are unaware of what it is that they're doing. That's the difference. So let's look at, before I end off this video, let's look at the reality of keeping the original damage and wound alive by continuing to choose the same reinforcements. You learned in your survival-based childhood that love and relationships are painful because your boundaries were violated. And so you learned that that's just the way that love is. But it's not. And when you really see it for what it is, I mean, the thing that's really sad about people that believe that this is what love is and that there's no other way is that essentially they just continue. Well, no, that's what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought for a second. So boundary violating love is painful, and to them, likely healthy love would be boring. Oh, wait a second, I don't have to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I don't have to defend myself against this person who's probably constantly attacking me. I don't have to run away from the issues of whatever emotional pain that I'm in. I don't have to shut down when this person severely obliterates me. I don't have to please them because I'm scared of things not getting better. To somebody who's used to all of the drama and chaos of unhealthy, sadomasochistic, boundary violating, did I already say painful? Painful love, healthy love is boring because you're like literally like you step into the space of healthy love and you're like, okay, I'm ready. And like they're looking at you and they're like, bye. I mean, no healthy person would find themselves in a position with somebody like that because they'd see it for what it is. Oh shit, that person, their boundaries were violated. They learned sadomasochistic love and relationships, and I just can't have a relationship with them. And so that's the fascinating thing about the entire dynamic. People that were raised in survival, that learned all of the shields, all of the defense mechanisms. We all have defense mechanisms. And even if you're healthy, you still have defense mechanisms. They just kind of become different. Other ones that used to be unhealthier leave. You let go of them because you realize you don't need them anymore. But that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. The question to ask yourself is, are you continuing to choose the same reinforcements that mirror what was modeled for you in the survival-based childhood because you still believe that love is painful, that it hurts, that it's boundary violating, that you can't just be yourself because you're still in survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Is this a dynamic that you find yourself in? If so, are you aware of it? If so, do you find it challenging for you to choose new rather than the same old reinforcements of the original wound and damage that led you to even believe that relationships are just painful? And really, before I end off this video, let me make it very clear that it's not just people. Your relationship to whatever it is that you're consuming. Maybe it's music. Maybe you're listening to music that reinforces the original damage. It's fascinating, isn't it? That you could actually listen to music that would reinforce a damaged belief that you are unworthy. But because you're attracted to that music, because you believe that you are unworthy, you choose the reinforcement of the original damage. And so then when you actually like step out of the space of that and you're like, wait a second, I'm listening to music, I'm consuming media that is actually a reinforcement that I do deserve to be hurt. And I should be in a relationship where my boundaries are being violated. And this is all just painful, but this is just the way that love is. It's just a reinforcement that's keeping you stuck inside of the same space. And I understand that people choose the same reinforcements because it's comfortable, it's familiar, and it can be very challenging to change that. It can be very challenging to let go of everything that you've been comfortable and familiar with. People, dynamics with people, media, consumption, whatever it is that you're taking in. Understanding why you're doing it is like the most important thing here. Because if you're looking at your life and you're like, I am still taking in the same things that reinforce the original wound and damage, then it's like, okay, well then I want to change this. Everything that you do, everyone that you interact with, why you do it, how you do it, that is what is to look at. That is exactly what to look at. And understanding that transforms everything. Because then you're literally like, well, wait a second, I don't have to continue choosing to interact with this person because the dynamic's not healthy. Cool. Yeah, wonderful. I don't have to continue choosing this media or this music or whatever it is because it's reinforcing the same original wound / damage. I'm just continuing to inflict pain on myself over and over again. Why am I doing that? Oh, now you're becoming conscious of the fact that that's what you have been doing and that's what you've continued to do. What would be healthier? What would be the healthy route? Do I let go of these friends? Do I try to communicate with these people in my life that I want something different? You can. You absolutely can. With a lot of people, I would argue that the likelihood that the relationship dynamic is going to change is very slim, unless they're actually interested in growing and healing themselves. But that's honestly none of your business, none of your responsibility. If they are cool, if they aren't, just get out. That's the way that it is. Who and what are you choosing? And why?